Today I'm going to add some signatures to my drop paper book. I will demonstrate the long stitch, which I get asked about all the time, and I've demonstrated it several times, but I think I'm going to put it in the video title this time so that you can find it. It's extremely simple, but I'll show you how to do that. There is another, at least one, maybe two videos on this whole book. You can search my channel for those if I forget to put the link. And you can see the first signatures that I put in. These are drop papers that, you know, are on my work surface anytime I'm painting and gluing and doing stuff, and they sometimes end up kind of cool looking. So I just bound them into this book. I left a little bit of space between each one so that I could go back and put another signature in between if I wanted to, and I want to. That's what I'm going to do with these. The first signatures I put in were all about this same size and shape, very uniform. This next batch ended up being totally different because I used some different papers. So I'm going to put these in between the others to give it a more carefree, not quite so uniform, junky look, right? So what I did was gathered up all of my drop papers. What I thought was all of my drop papers, it was not, because I was just upstairs a few minutes ago, and what do I find? This whole stack of drop papers that I had set aside specifically to be bound into this book, because they were kind of at that point, and I totally forgot about them. I overlooked them. I kept thinking they were just stacks of painted papers. Didn't realize they were drop papers. I'm not going to bother with these yet. I'm going to go ahead and get the ones I have prepared bound in, and then I will tackle those. What I did was gathered up all my drop papers, laid them out, and some of mine are on very large sheets, and I get asked about them a lot. Let me find one. I found a big one. This feels like a big one. What they are, they're land plats from a friend. She worked for either a real estate person or maybe a builder, and they were going digital and had a whole box of these printed out that they were just going to dump, you know, get rid of. And she saved them from the trash and had the brilliant idea of passing them along to me, knowing I would use them. But they're huge. Okay, this still has not been unfolded. This is half. And you know, it will cover an entire table, large pieces. So when I gather up my drop papers, I do either cut them, or usually I just tear them down into a more manageable size that will fit into this book. That's the first thing I do. Second thing I do is kind of tedious and optional, but worth it to me. I put a strip of packing tape down the center of each page on each side, front and back. And I do that just to reinforce the stitching, because some of these papers are really brittle and thin. Not any there. Let me find one. I sometimes use moving paper, you know, the packing paper that you use to pack your stuff when you're moving. This stuff is super thin and brittle, and you know, it's just going to rip so easy. So this packing tape, you know, like that, just the clear tape, cheap stuff. I just put a strip on the inside and the outside right at the fold, just so that the stitches will hold better. So that's what I do. Gather up your papers, tear them down to size, reinforce the center if you want to, and then assemble them into signatures. And you know, they're kind of random, kind of planned randomness, you know. It doesn't matter. This is just a fun, casual book for no reason. So I just folded them all up into signatures. Some have 5 pages, some have 10 or 11 pages. Doesn't really matter. and some of them were kind of ugly on the one side and really pretty on the other. So anytime I ran across those, I would just glue them. I would take two papers that both had a plain side and glue the plain sides together. So some of them have papers attached to them already, some don't. So there you go. Now to sew these in, this is going to be super easy because I've already, everything's already marked in there. But if you're starting from scratch, to do a long stitch, you can have either an even or an odd number of stitches. One of the reasons I really like this binding, because you can do it either way, it doesn't matter. I usually choose an odd number just because it's easier to measure off. And these I do, well, you really only have to, if you measure, you only have to measure one, and then the others just line up. But you don't have to measure. It just looks neater if you make sure that they're all in the same spot. And if you find about the center point, it's easy just to measure from that center point. Go 2 inches, there's your next hole. Go 2 inches, there's your next hole. Do that on each side. If you have an even number of holes, you can't really do that off the center hole. You have to, it's like there's math involved. So I just use an odd number of holes. I did measure across here to make sure they were evenly spaced, and poke your holes. Make a template that lines up with your holes, and use this to poke your signatures. And always mark the top. Make sure the top of the template is at the top of your signature. I don't care how well you've measured these. If you flip it, they're going to be off. They always are. It just happens. Now, so I'm at the poke the holes point. So what I'm going to do is, and I can just kind of eyeball it for these. I'm not going to measure, because I can see where the stitch is, sort of. And I just want to put a little mark right in between. And that's where I'm going to bind. Easy, easy. And I can do the same thing over here, because some of your, the needle will be coming in through this side on some of the stitches. So just mark right in between each one, if you're doing it this way, so that you know where your needle goes. Okay. I don't see that one. There it is. Alright, we got it. Now, you want to, this thing is so big and so bulky, it's really hard to film and it gets in the way, but just do the best I can. Now, I want to poke my first signature. A signature is nothing more than a stack of papers folded and nested together. This is a signature. Folded and nested. When you're making a signature, you will want to fold your pages individually and then nest them together. Don't take a stack of papers, fold it over, and then crease it and call that a signature. The reason is because even doing it the individual way, there's a certain amount of what's called creep, and you can see how the inside pages kind of stick out from the outside pages. It's not completely even, and I mean, it makes sense because the thickness of the paper, right? The creep is much worse if you fold the stack as one stack. The creep is much less if you fold each page individually and then nest them. It makes a neater book. That's just a little tip, FYI. Now, I'm gonna line my papers up. Some are upside down, and that's okay. And I do want them all, they don't have to be perfectly centered, but relatively so. These two I might stagger. Put that one, this one down toward the bottom, this one up toward the top. go. This one. You know, it's just a for fun book. Don't have to worry about exact. So stack them like you want them stacked, and then poke the holes. And I'm just kind of eyeballing it. Okay, it looks about centered. I'm not going to measure because it's close enough. I don't really care about precision here. And I always start with the middle hole. Poke through and just kind of make sure, or try to get it through the spine and not the cover like I usually do. Sometimes it helps if I lay it flat and then bring the pages up. There, I got it. You can use clamps to hold your pages together if you want, but I'm not gonna bother with that because, you know, you've seen me try to struggle to find the holes. And that's just all kinds of fun. We don't want to lose that fun, right? Okay. They are poked. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use waxed linen. And I'm going to pull off about 2.5 times the length of my stitches. So my stitches go from here to here. I can't really see them. Here we go. Stitching is going to go from here to here. I want about 2.5 times that. Plus, I left a pretty good tail on those. So let's just do 2.5 times this whole length. That should be enough. I'm using a kind of a large needle. You will need a large tapestry needle or bookbinding needle for this. Just like that. And on the book, you can see my tail is on the outside. So that means I started stitching from the outside going in. So we're going to start on the outside at the top. So I am going to, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and put my needle in. See my little hole there. Ouch. The needle in. A clamp would really be good to have for this. Let's see if I can do it without a clamp. Clamping your little tail in place usually helps so that it doesn't end up getting pulled out. Now I'm going to come through my signature. My pages have all shifted, and that's alright. I'm going to try to find the hole that I poked, and if I can't find it, I'll just poke another one. Alright, got it. There we go. I'll hold on to my tail. I don't know which one is my tail. There it is. Hold on to that so I don't pull it through. There we go. Okay. Alright, that's the hardest part, getting it started. From here on out, it's usually a little easier. Let's just see. So, go down through the next hole. It's up, down, in order, all the way. You don't skip anything, you don't do anything weird. This is one of the easiest bookbinding stitches to do. You could do this. You don't have to know how to sew. You don't need any special skills. You don't even need any special tools. There, made it through. Now I'm going to poke it through the hole that I've marked in the cover. And, oh, did you hear my tummy growl? It's lunchtime. I'm going to pull it. Okay, last binding I did on film, I've made the string way too short, and now I'm all like paranoid. I'm afraid I've done it again because it's already looking short, but no, it should be fine. Okay, so I've still got my tail. This feels like it is pulled tight, so I'm gonna just head for the next hole, which is right there. Poke through. Made it. I'll go ahead and pull this all the way through. And turn so I can see, which means you probably can't. I'm going to go up, through, my signature. There's the middle. There's the middle. Can I get them all at once? No, because it's already shifting. Sometimes on these papers it's hard to tell what's a hole and what's just, you know, a little paint blob. I end up poking through a little paint blob thinking that it's a hole, and it's not. There. Once again, hold on to my, whatever it is, tail. Pull tight. Okay. We're still working in a downward direction, so let's just hit the next hole, which is right there. Ooh, that went through nicely. Now I'm hitting my cover hole, or my little mark, and pull it through. Hold on to my tail. Pull tight. Okay, last one. Okay. Pull tight. Looks good. It's not even close to being straight. And that's pretty awesome. Okay, we're at the end here. There's no more holes. So all we do is just turn around and head the other way. And what you're going to do is you will end up filling your gaps. And then you're done. So we go back through this hole. Try not to split your thread. Don't put your needle through your thread, just the hole. And then you're going to come out here, making sure everything stays snug. So you can see I'm a little off there. Yeah, that doesn't matter. Good with that. Now I'll do the same thing here. We're going to fill in that gap. So poke through that hole and pull it snug. Down through this one. Yep, coming through. Pull tight. Now we have one final gap to close. That is the one between the tail that we started with and our final stitch. Can you see it? I pulled the camera up so now I can't see the display. I don't know what you're seeing. Hopefully it's, see right there? So all I want to do is just put a knot right there, just like I did these. And I want the knot to be right up at the top, so I just kind of pull in this direction as I'm making the knot. and then just use whatever kind of knot you can to get it to hold. And I usually tie it, you know, an extra 2 or 3 times, just to make sure it's secure. There we go. And cut off the excess. Okay, so we have added our new signature. Kind of wonky. That's alright. But okay, that's the next one. How about I pull these out? It might have been good to do before I started all that. There we go. It's in there. Now this is going to give my book a more overall junky fun look rather than so uniform, which is what I wanted. So all I have to do is do that 3 more times and then probably another 3 or 4 more times for that stack. We're done. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to do that off camera because it's the very same thing. This long stitch, let me say, this is signature sewn in individually. You can do the long stitch where you jump from one signature to the next so that they're all sewn in together with one long piece of thread. In fact, that's usually a more traditional way of doing the long stitch, but this is fine. This is good. I like this. It certainly does make it easier if you have a problem with one of them, which I did a few days ago. One of them, I guess the thread broke right at the tie-off. And because they were sewn in individually, it was really easy for me to just back that piece of thread out, tie on a new length, put it back in, and fix it. And, you know, no one will ever know. So, yeah, there we go. So let me do these other ones, and then we'll come back and see what we have.